Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Overcrank. I'm joined today by my good friend Colden, who happily let me join his show, and I'm joining his show, and we're just having all sorts of fun, causing problems and talking tech.
Yeah, man. I love the community.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So I brought Colden specifically today because the reason I started talking to Colden was that he was making aggressive claims against GoPro that I was like, I agree with what you're saying, but like, why the hate? And he's like, because they're collecting money in advance. And I didn't understand what a dirty play that was until, was it last week when I texted you?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is what they're doing. So Cole, catch everybody up, and then we're going to get into the dirt and the nitty gritty of it.
Sure. And we can set some ground rules first, I guess, too, between hate and like criticism or question, like asking questions, right? Like, and that was where I started with this. And it was so funny to see kind of the two different sides online and the debate that it sparked. Was I thought so timeline wise, right?
Well, let me pause you for 1 second. 1 second. Only because I also want to say, I have no hate for GoPro.
Right.
I think it would be awesome to see an American company in this race. You know, it's just what they're doing right now, really cagey. Go ahead.
By the way, in the race, they started the race.
Yeah,
right?
Good call.
GoPro was the only option you had if you wanted to go diving with a camera outside of a couple $1,000s to get a waterproof housing for your DSLR and pray that your, 1DX actually it stayed waterproof, right? Like,
right.
They were the first ones to go, here's a $299 camera and you can submerge it underwater with our little dive housing. And it's 1080p. I don't remember if the first one, it might have been 720, but like they started the race. Everybody else since then has just been copying. It's kind of disappointing to see the one who started it be the laziest in innovating to new things. And it's like, that's hard to see. And I think that's where my emotion the first time came from when we kind of reviewed the Mission 1 launch is like, man, you guys started this. You guys were here at the beginning. I bought your first one. I bought your third one. I bought your fifth one. Like I've been a huge GoPro supporter. I was invested in the stock after the IPO. And that's another thing we can talk about. Like I really believe in the company. It's hard to see a company like that who innovated and started the space then become kind of the laziest one in the space. And God bless them, they've got a bunch of like diehard fans that have defended every launch of every camera. But my question started on this Mission 1 where they're calling it, and I talked to Jake on our show about this last week. My biggest frustration, I think, is always the YouTube marketing hype of, this is a game changer. This is like the game changer terminology. Unless you're really changing the game, which I would argue, taking a little 1080p webcam, basically, putting it in a dive housing that can go down 100 feet, that's game changer. That was the GoPro 1. Since then, I didn't see a lot of compelling data to say the Mission 1 is a game changer. I don't love companies that drop their projection pipeline. Like they've always had the Hero line. They totally dropped that. They have not confirmed to anybody that a Hero 14 is even in the works. So they scrapped it, but basically took that same thing, called it the Mission 1, not the Pro, the Mission 1. It's basically a Hero 14. They just charged an extra $100 on top of what we would expect to see a Hero 14 for, called it game-changing, but the Mission 1, not the Pro, not the ILS, is that any different than what we would expect for a 2026 release of a GoPro or a DJI or an Insta360? Like, that's my first thought is, did they do anything that was groundbreaking in the Mission 1?
The interesting thing you said too about laziness, and I think, isn't that just sort of stereotypically though the thing that happens once you become the monster? You kind of sit back like, well, our people will keep supporting us. And when you're the DJI and the Instas, you're like fighting. You're like, I got to get it. And they're pushing. And GoPro just goes, no, we got this. And that's sort of that unfortunate cycle. I'll tell you another very unfortunate side effect. I don't think it'll affect a lot of people. When my tenure at NASA, we were not allowed to buy products made in mainland China. We were not allowed to buy anything of that ilk. And so we weren't allowed to get DJI, even gimbals. So GoPro ended up on all of the space missions, ended up in all of those things. And I'm like, whoa, what are they going to do now? Like this is a real problem from from that perspective. The whole, I want to say, federal government, wherever they might use those things, they're not going to be able to find a replacement camera.
Right. Well, I've got some thoughts. I'm interested. Okay. So we've got, like, let's break this down, I guess, and because I'm the ADD person that's going to run all over the place. So we'll try and keep this as organized. But like from a business, let's like break down GoPro, kind of what's happened from a business perspective.
Yes.
Take the Mission 1 out of it for a second. We can talk about the Mission 1 launch as a camera, but take the business. And that's another place where I can say, like, and I Todd, you tell me, my last GoPro that I've purchased myself was the Hero 9. So anybody listening, like, obviously I am invested in the system, but I haven't bought the newest ones. I've worked professionally with the 10s, and I can tell you we had so many problems with those 10s overheating that we kind of stopped bringing them out to sets. So my last personal experience with the GoPro was the 9. Professionally, it was the 10. I know they've improved since then, but they've kind of consistently had certain issues. The overheating is one, the battery life is one. So that's my perspective on it. I'm just looking at this as somebody who's been invested and waiting for the next, give me something good to buy, guys. What's your last GoPro that you've had?
Funnily enough, exactly the same one as you, the 9, because DJI hooked me in with their first action cam. I was like, whoa, they're delivering so much more for the money than GoPro is now. It was the same reason when I made that jump from Canon to Sony. It was that, I'm getting more over here. And it's like, sorry, but what they're doing is you guys got to catch up. You know, the camera on the front and the viewfinder on the front and all that stuff. DJI was first to market with that, as I recall. I don't remember that being true on GoPro. And I went to the 9. And even before this most recent venture into diving all in on my DJI universe, I just went out and bought new batteries for my 9 so that I could like use it for BTS and stuff. But then I've been watching all these creators. I will blame Tamara Gabriel. I don't know if you've seen her. She's a great YouTuber, and she spends a ton of time talking about all the vlogging that she does with action cams. And I was like, whoa, those cameras. I've come around to where I feel like the Action 6 is truly a pocket cinema camera. And I think that's what GoPro is trying to sell us, particularly with the ILS and the Pro. Like we've made a competitor to that. But we've talked about that on a previous show. It's like, oh man, that interchangeable lens thing causes so many problems. I can't even begin to think of where to start. And you want $699 for that thing. I'm like, oh, this thing.
That one's
is
marked
pinchy.
At, I think $899.
Oh, is it?
The ILS is, I think it's $899. Yeah, because it like starts it. Let me look it up. But I thought that those started at like $899, I thought. So you're asking for a lot of money. And I have some thoughts on the ILS and like where it sits, and kind of that's why I was against it when they kind of launched it and talked about it. But in terms of a business, if you take the camera out of it and you just see where GoPro is as a business, 2025 their revenue was $652 million. That was down 19% year over year. So they lost 19% of their revenue in 2025. Camera sales were down 20%, so they only sold through 2 million units in 2025. Subscription services were 106. That was down 1%. That's 2025 as a snapshot. And you guys, if you're watching this, you can pull up GoPro as a stock ticker, and it just goes down since the IPO, right? The big thing that I think motivated a ton of this, the switch in their strategy, I think they were always working on, it was either going to be the Hero 14, right? They've been working on this. They usually come out with a new camera every year.
Yeah.
I think what motivated a lot of this was their Q1 numbers. So Q1 revenue dropped to $99 million, which was down 26% from the last year that was down 19%, right? So they're bleeding. And then the camera sell-through dropped down to 313,000 units. That was down quarter over quarter by 29%. So
Yeah.
that's the first quarter that they had, right? And so everything is down. And their big thing, right? What did they do when they launched the Mission? They said, we'll give you a discount if you
Yeah.
are in our subscription platform. Their subscription platform was flat at 27 million. Subscribers fell to 2.26 million, so down another 8%. So from the last year, they were already losing subscribers to their GoPro online subscription, whatever.
Yeah.
Now they lost another 8%. So I think, like, just as a business, then their margins fell. And this is crazy. You know, if you are into the investing space at all, which I don't want to get terribly techie here, but you
Yeah.
look at like NVIDIA, which is a company that operates on like 70% margins.
Yeah.
GAAP gross margins for GoPro fell to 4.3%.
Yeah,
Down
that's
from
untenable.
32%, which was
Yeah.
like, that's decent for a camera space. You dropped it down to 4%, and they kind of included in there, they mentioned that there was issues with getting all of the parts for these new cameras, but to lose your margins down to 4%, they're in trouble. So what do? In my opinion, if you're looking at all of that stuff as an investor of a business, then you go, we got to change our strategy. We got to try and collect some money up front to front
Yeah.
load some of this debt that we're trying to service. Forget cameras.
Right.
Like, we're just trying to service the debt. And the other stat I had in here is their debt is currently, after Q1, March 31st, 99.9 million of
Yeah.
debt on an interest rate that's only going up.
Well, and that was the article that I was bringing up, is that they are not going to be able to sustain at the current rate. And the problem is they will find themselves in a space where those debtors are going to be running to collect money now before bankruptcy filings, and create an even greater problem. Like, this is a nightmare scenario, I think, for GoPro. And I don't remember who was talking about. Oh, it was that Tony Northrup. So I watched his video about it. And he said some stuff where you're like, oh, that's totally what's going to happen. You know, the one speculation that somebody will come in and buy it for parts,
Right.
and they will take that name and rebrand it like Kodak has, unfortunately, on lame products. But people are like, oh, I have an affinity for that, and I want that. And I think Polaroid's been guilty of that as well. You know, you sell it to like
Kodak
a fashion
switched to like almost Bitcoin mining, I think. Like, Kodak has totally turned there. And it's like, I can't remember the sneaker company that did the same.
Yeah.
Allbirds, I think, went to a mining company. I mean, they just totally switched their entire philosophy around. And so I wouldn't be shocked.
See that. No, and you could see it, and especially if you're a savvy investor, you're like, I know, and you've seen them. Those GoPro fanboys will buy it if it says GoPro on it, at least for a year or two, and so they'll be able to capitalize on that brand for a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting. I don't know how much you followed this. The camera space is consolidating significantly from, you know, where I saw the space in 20 years when I got into it 10 years ago. I mean, we're looking at a lot of major companies in the space that are pursuing purchases or selling the company to a larger company or private financing. Ari just sold, right? So Ari's now bought by an English company. And you're looking at Nikon that's looking
That's what I thought.
for a bailout. Like, Nikon's looking at buyers as well. So GoPro's not alone. I know Leica's in talks of being purchased potentially by not DJI, another Chinese subsidiary. So you're looking at like major innovators in this space. So GoPro's not alone there.
No.
So in terms of a struggling business model, I understand the jump then to try and capitalize on the name and the marketing and the, you know, R&D that they already did for the 14, and say, okay, here we go. And they, you know, they rushed into the launch to try and hit NAB, which I get all of that stuff too.
Yep.
My question in my first video was like, when have we seen this launch of we're releasing the cameras, two, right? They released for pre-order the Mission 1 and the Mission 1 Pro. They kind of teased the ILS and said that's going to be for sale later on. But you can go and pre-order, or at the time, at NAB in April 20th, you could go buy the Mission 1 or the Mission 1 Pro, and they didn't have anything out yet. They had fully embargoed their creators for everything. That was what I thought was odd. And other companies, and I got comments in my videos that were like, well, DJI's done this before, Insta360's done this before. And like, I would equally call out all of them for putting something up for sale for me to go buy it with my hard-earned money, and not allowing me to at least see some test footage that's not just shot by GoPro and their cinema team. And like, there's some shots even in GoPro's teaser that I'm either going to give mad respect to that they got that out of a little 1-inch GoPro sensor, or I don't think they used a GoPro at all for some of those things. How am I going to go back and prove it? But what I can do is at least look at, even if YouTubers get paid for it, at least I can go look at somebody without $1 million budget and a marketing team and go, okay, how did you actually use this camera? Because my big thing on all the action cameras, and you've done some really amazing stuff with yours, but thanks. Most people buy an action camera because they see somebody with a Red Bull suit skydiving out of an airplane and landing on a dirt bike and jumping across the Grand Canyon, and they're like, I want to do that. And then they get it home and they go out for like their afternoon walk, and the footage doesn't look as good. And and then they're disappointed in it. And so I always lean on what average YouTubers or average content creators would use the camera for before I'm making a purchase. And on this one, they just delayed that in such a way that they were like, we're gonna open the pre-orders up. You got to buy it now, but we're not going to show you what it looks like. That's weird.
That in particular, that moonshot is insane. Like, that's NASA level telescopic lens. Like, I want to really see the rig for that, because everybody's like, how in the world did they pull off that moonshot? If there's AI in that,
a lot of the shots in their promos look phenomenal. And the thing that I'll give them too, is like, the slow motion capabilities on this are very exciting. I think had you given me this 5 years ago, I was like deeply in search for a 960 frames per second camera a couple of years ago. I really like the idea of a really cheap Phantom camera. Super exciting. I found one in an old Sony camera, which was the RX10 Mark II, I think. And it had a very interpolated 1-inch sensor, and they were able to give you very small bursts of kind of their version of 960 frames per second. It was really horrible quality. It never matched in with any of the other cuts, but you at least got that feeling for like what a really cheap Phantom camera might feel like, because you have a buffer setting. Like, the pain for me is you had to engage the like 960 slow-mo. So you had to turn that feature on. Once you turned the feature on, you lost all of your focus control. So you had to like set your focus and then go, okay, turn it on. And then you had like, if you wanted high quality, you had a 2-second buffer of 960. If you wanted 5 seconds, you had lower quality. So you had to pick that, and then you hit go, and then you did your thing for 2 seconds. The only thing I learned in that experience now is this new camera, the Mission 1 Pro, leaps and bounds better than that. They're using a quad Bayer sensor. They're using brand new 1-inch sensor technology. It's beautiful. But what I learned is 960 frames is really freaking slow. And how many times in your client work do you need a Phantom camera? Do you need 960? Usually 120 is way more than I need. 240 is great. If you're doing something crazy, 240 looks great, but you're still going like 8x slower than a normal timeline. 960, after that camera experience that I had, I was like, 240 is a sweet spot for me. I can film really cool action stuff in 240 and it can look great. 960 is like, man, you're really like having to speed ramp through this to even keep people's attention. It's so slow.
That I ran into that just recently because I don't use even the 120 that often, but I was
Yeah.
using it for this grocery store, and they're like, "Well, we need this shot of like panning the meat, in the meat case that'll be like the background when they put up the offer, you know what I mean? Like so it'll just be kind of
Hmm.
flowing, and so I ran this thing, and I'm playing it back, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like 20 seconds of video. This is forget it. Like I had to speed it
Yeah.
up for him. I was like, this is it. You're right. Like 120 is great. 240 I'm looking forward to playing with, but
Yeah.
I don't even not sure the use case because it's just sort of a neat thing, like, oh,
Yeah.
this will be a cool, maybe a music video. I don't know, but like, it's just, it's awesome.
Potato Jet
But
did a review of the Mission 1, and
yeah,
he nailed what the Mission 1 should be used for. He like took his dirt bike out in the desert and like was dirt biking and had some great shots and like jumping over the thing, and it like phenomenal compositions, great review. It wasn't a key point of his review, but he mentioned, he was like, I think it's his wife or his camera assistant, whoever, I had them like load the slow motion from the GoPro app, and then I went and did the thing and they hit go before I jumped over. I'm like, you need a camera crew now, is what you're saying, because
yeah,
that's what GoPro, the only issue that I had, 10 years ago with the RX is that you have to arm it and you only have 10 seconds. So it's not like you're setting it up, you're like hitting record because you're out in the middle of the desert and you're dirt biking and you really want that 960 frames a second, and you set it and you hit record and then you get on your dirt bike and then you go. Like, you have to have somebody else to arm it, to
yeah,
monitor it, and to get the timing right where they don't hit it too early and it stops recording before you even do your crazy dirt bike jump. Like, in that
yeah,
moment, I was like, that's the problem that we still haven't quite solved. And wouldn't that be great if GoPro could figure out a way to solve that? But it's not solved yet. And that 960 is very slow, and you still need somebody else to arm it, or you need to be the videographer only.
yeah,
And then I'm going, is that the product that GoPro's known for? Is the videographer? Usually it's the selfie stick going down the mountain, or it's,
yeah,
the dirt bike. It's the action adventurer that gets
yes,
the GoPro, not the camera crew. And so
correct.
there's another issue with that launch in just terms of like usability of their feature set. Cool feature set. Like the stuff that Potato Jet got, the shots, beautiful. The 960 frames per second, I wish I had that in my Sony RX10 10 years ago.
Yeah,
But I imagined myself in his editing chair trying to pick out, a 3-second shot out of 960 frames per second is like,
yeah,
he probably had speed some of that up too. Like you were feeling like
yeah.
you're not
To get to
really
it,
using 960.
you're making me laugh too because I'm thinking about. Have you ever seen this guy on YouTube, Camera Conspiracies?
Oh yeah.
He's got a
Yeah.
really
And
cranky, self-loathing, but he talks about that you couldn't focus, and he has all these blurry shots of slow-mo birds. You're like, but it's useless.
right.
Yeah,
Right. Once it's
yeah,
slow motion, like it doesn't
yeah,
automatically. And that's another thing I think the YouTube community has, you know, oversold, is that like even just the term, like, all right, two terms that I really dislike hearing on YouTube all the time, and I'm probably guilty of both, but game changer and
yeah,
cinematic.
yeah,
And people that are chasing cinematic, rather than investing their time in learning how to light and how to do sound design and how to do composition, they
yeah,
go, oh, if I get 960 frames a second, that's cinematic. Slow
yeah.
motion isn't cinematic inherently. How you tell the
No,
story, how you light the story, how you design your sound design to really capture people and tell a story, that's cinema. But
yeah,
960 frames per second is not automatically cinematic. So there's
no,
another, and do we want to talk about the ILS? Because I do have thoughts on how they launched the ILS.
yeah. Please,
And we don't know a lot about it. And I think this is another issue with, now, I think thankfully, maybe I should double check this, that GoPro's not actually pre-ordering this, but
I think they
they
are.
launched an ILS
Let me
model,
see.
which is the interchangeable lens system. They put a micro four thirds lens mount on it, which I thought is awesome. I got
Yeah,
hate on my video that I posted about it saying, man, nobody's ever happy. You've been asking for an ILS type of GoPro forever. Now they did it. Now you're not happy with it. And to that, like, yes, but timeline wise, 5-10 years ago, that would have been really innovative in this space. Right
Yeah.
now, we've got micro cameras that are really competitive in this space that either do that or do that in a smarter way.
Yeah.
So GoPro's ILS, no camera communication,
No.
which is,
Huge problem.
the comment back, the easy low hanging fruit is you don't really need autofocus, dude. This is an action camera. You're going to set it up. You don't need autofocus. I get it. I
If you're
like
setting
pulling
it at
manual focus.
f/22 or something like that, yeah, maybe.
Well, if it's not, man, and I get
F8.
it, they're not selling it as a vlogging camera. They're kind of selling it as the micro cinema camera. What they did to showcase the ILS was perfect. They set it up on cars, right, with a
Yeah.
fixed focal point, and they kind of used the what was it, F1 movie where they used the Tilta system to whip
Yeah.
the camera back and forth. Great. That's what it's meant for. But you're talking about a GoPro, they're selling it as super light. When you leave off camera communication pins, the things that not everybody was talking about is, what about all those micro four thirds lenses that need camera communication to adjust your aperture? It's
Yeah.
built in. Think about how many of your RF lenses, if you're on Canon, or your E lenses don't have a manual aperture dial. And if you say you can use all of these lenses because it's a micro four thirds system, but you really can't. You
Mm-mm.
really can only use the fully manual ones. And when you
Yeah.
have to be fully manual, what happens to the lens? It gets heavier and it gets
Mhm.
bigger because you're not focusing, you're not pulling the aperture by wire at that point, right? So this
I have
idea that you have this tiny thing in your pocket that can do this, but now you have a big lens because it has to be manual. Sorry, what were you
Yeah.
going to say?
I was going to say, I think we've talked about this before, but there is a hack for that, at least that I found for Sony.
Mhm.
And if that were the case, you'd have to have also a Canon camera body.
Right.
You set everything, and then you hot remove the lens.
Yep.
And then you can. But that, again, this is a multi-step process that takes away anything that's going to be convenient now. And to your point too, yeah, there were a lot of small, very capable micro four thirds cameras already in existence. And honestly, once we're doing this with a GoPro, it ceases to be what is a GoPro.
Right.
Waterproof, dustproof. Like, I don't know what's happening now in that seal, if there's a seal. And I probably would, the other cameras that exist might be weather sealed on top of that with their lens system. So I don't know. It's a weird choice. And I still don't agree with the decision because I'm like, I don't understand. I guess micro four thirds is probably best suited for that smaller sensor. I guess that's why they chose that one.
It's easy to adapt.
Okay.
You have a lot of adaptation to older lenses. You have a really large, and it's open source. It's one of the few lens mounts that's open source enough that lots of
Okay.
different companies have made it. So it's a really compelling, when this came out, I made the comparison to the original Blackmagic Pocket cinema camera, which is a
Yeah.
micro four thirds. It's a Super 16 sensor. It's an even smaller sensor than what GoPro has put in their ILS, but they used a micro four thirds lens mount, and I love that camera. There's such a
love
cult
it.
following for the Blackmagic Pocket cinema camera, but the one thing that Blackmagic did way back, 15 years ago when they launched that camera, there was an electronic communication with the lens so
Yep.
that you could, and did they have autofocus? No, it was garbage. They had a focus where you tapped a point of the screen and it would kind of hunt for the focus. It was a manual focus camera, but I could adjust my aperture. The coolest thing about it is Metabones made all these adapters where you could get wider field of views, right? Take
Yep.
your EF lenses, adapt it. Now you have basically an APS-C camera. I loved shooting with that camera on a Metabones, and I was actually excited when they launched this ILS. I was like, I'm going to grab my old Metabones that worked on my pocket cinema camera, and I'm going to
Mhm.
test out, I'm going to have that feeling again.
Yeah.
But if you have to adjust your aperture electronically, you're not going to have that feeling again. You're going to
No.
have to do everything manually. And that was a weird one. And so to that, where I said, we've never needed this camera less. That's how I opened my video where I think we met. As I said, we never needed a camera less than that. So to that point, we just covered on our show last week, Kinefinity just dropped the pre-orders for their new camera, the Vista. The Vista
What does that thing
was
run?
launched at now. So this is crazy. The Vista
Yeah.
was teased. And again, here's a company that kind of did the same thing, but went the right way. Going
Yeah.
back to kind of the GoPro thing is like, companies can do it the right way. Companies can try and grab your money.
Yeah.
It was very early. It was very new. They kind of teased it at NAB. They had it there as a prototype. They weren't letting anybody shoot with it. They said, we're going to shoot for under $3,000. This is a 6K open gate sensor with our Kinney mount, and we're shooting for under $3,000. They gave it to a whole bunch of creators to go test it and be their beta testers. They, last week, so June 4th, they opened the embargo so that creators could talk about it.
Okay.
They put their pre-orders in the same day. So the day that they opened their pre-orders on their website, B&H, Adorama, anywhere you buy cameras, was the same day you could go watch a whole bunch of creators talk about that camera. And
Yeah.
everyone in those reviews, I watched them, and they said, look, guys, we are operating on beta firmware. Like, we don't even have ProRes in this camera yet. Kinefinity gave us this. They've been updating the software. They've been listening to us as we're talking, but it is buggy, and you're going to get a way better camera than what we're testing right now. I have so much more respect for that. I can give them patience for that, and I can look at that camera and go, that's a really compelling option for the price tag. Like, and I can overlook that you are still on a beta phase. And that was to GoPro's thing, you know, when I said, guys, why aren't we seeing we're seeing pictures of creators holding the camera. Why aren't we seeing any camera footage? They're saying, well, GoPro's not done with their firmware yet, so it's still in beta firmware. Okay, then make that part of the disclaimer when you're reviewing the footage. Hey guys, this is on beta firmware, but here's what it looks like so far, because you opened up the pre-orders. So the cool thing about Kinefinity, they have a pre-order on B&H right now. It's $19.99 for that camera right now. And I don't know if it's because it's pre-order, because the like news wires are saying it's $24.99. But on B&H, it's $19.99. So it's $2,000 for a 6K open gate sensor that shoots 6K open gate on all your flavors of ProRes. It has professional I/O. It has a built-in 256 SD card in it. SSD.
Nice.
Sorry, I always say SSD. Yeah. So it's got a solid state drive built into it, which it's worth that in just memory costs, right? Like, go buy a 256 gig SSD. That means that the camera's $1,500. And so, all right, you're talking about, you know, play the Price is Right game here. You're talking about GoPro that's launching their ILS for about $1,000 after you get a lens and the media kit and whatever. Okay, so that's $1,000 to get an HDMI out on it because you need their media kit. So you're talking about $1,000 more, and you get 6K open gate, professional I/O, professional batteries, riggable, and its Kinney mount is one of that. I talked about this a ton last week on our show. It's the coolest mount. It's the smallest flange distance where you can literally adapt E-mount lenses, which what other system lets you use Sony E lenses on a third-party camera? You can't do it. E lenses, EF lenses, PL lenses, you can adapt it to anything because the flange distance is so short. It even works with E lenses. So crazy. So if you're telling me that GoPro's trying to get into the professional camera space, most pro level people can drop $2,000. And if the difference is just, you know, $700, $800, $900, it's a very crowded space that GoPro's trying to make their name in. I appreciate that they're trying to kind of, you know, we talked about the depreciation of their camera sales over the last couple of years. I appreciate that they're trying something. My opinion is just like, you guys picked the hardest market to try and get into right now, right? Like I just bought, I don't know if I told you, I bought the Nikon ZR used on Facebook Marketplace for $1,700. So now we're talking about like a delta of $700, and I have 6K red code raw, and like, it's a very competitive marketplace. Oh, and by the way, all of my E lenses work on it, and it has autofocus. Like, it's a great camera for that price tag. I don't see a lot on the ILS.
Well, no, and you just made another good point, and that's something that I've often found. You know, being a small production house myself, used has always been a very good market for me. Because generally speaking, people who are like you and me, who this is what they do for a living, well, that camera lives inside a case when it's not in use. It's
Yep.
handled properly. It's not something that gets thrown around. And so buying a secondary, I bought back in the day is to have we would record I worked for a radio station, and we would record bands, and where I had 3 Blackmagic cameras, and I was just collecting those, from the used market. I remember I bought one of them actually from Sinbad's son, the comedian. It was like this weird, like, are you Sinbad? He's like, how did you figure that out? I'm like, I don't know. This is just weird, but this is cool that I have your camera. But like, the used market also tips that balance point then too, for somebody like a GoPro work. Cause that's where I'm at. Like I have a ton of cameras in my arsenal. I kind of still want to get an FX3 or an FX30. And it's like, I'm looking at that used market myself. And at that point you're like, for $1,500 versus buying a GoPro, I'm going to buy this. I like my action cameras for what they are and the fact that they're $300. And
Right.
if it gets trashed, it gets trashed, weird. The ILS is just a weird one all around. I like the Mission. I
Yeah.
really liked and was going to buy the Mission Pro. However, with the space that we're in now, just like I'm afraid to buy a new DJI product, I can't get warranty. I'm buying because I've had such positive experience with them that I'm like, I trust it. It's probably going to work.
Yeah.
And I'm taking the gamble. That being said, as a pivot point, that's why I'm excited about this company, Extra.
Yeah.
Everybody's claiming it's not DJI. I'm not going to say it is and get sued by Extra, but it's a very, very compelling and similar product.
Right.
And so I think going forward, that's kind of the direction. And so like, sorry, GoPro, until I'm not buying from someplace that is actively filing for bankruptcy.
Right.
And in real trouble. That's not a good place for me to put, because even that at that point, and I get it, it's an American company, so it costs more to produce, ostensibly, although they're probably all the parts I'm guessing are made in China to begin with, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's probably assembly here. But maybe, but
But
the
you brought up
cost. Go
yeah.
ahead.
I was going to say you kind of transitioned us into that
Yeah.
thing that you and I were kind of messaging back and forth on, is that just to kind of complete this story and kind of track on what Tony Northrup was reporting on too. And I saw this and I debated like on our pod. It's like I always tend to bring up GoPro for some reason. I'm like, maybe we skip this one. But on May 11th, which is a while ago, GoPro's board voted to pursue other strategic alternatives, which also includes putting the company up for sale and trying to find another buyer. And then to your point, and you brought it up beautifully, do you how secure do you feel in buying a new DJI product that you can't get serviced? I read on a Reddit post last week. There was somebody complaining about a DJI. I don't remember. I think it might have been the Pocket 3, but they tried to send it in. It was broken. They said, sorry, we're back ordered. We can't do anything. Sent the broken thing back to him. Said, we can't do anything. So how much do you trust? And I love this advice, which is buy a camera today for the camera it is today. Do not expect firmware updates. Do not expect ongoing support. But at the same time, there have been a lot of kind of one-off products that I've bought that you just can't send them anywhere. The main board goes out, you need a new battery, and you're just kind of out of luck, right?
And
so if
the
they
weird
get sold,
that's the weird thing that's happened too in recent years, and I'm still uneasy with it. I don't want my lenses to have firmware. I do not understand that and what it's operating, but I don't want to ever even try to update a lens. Lenses should just be, I understand we have focus by wire systems now, and that's probably the driving factor, but in my mind, this is a mechanical thing. Let's keep the computers out of the lenses, but everything now has that potential for electronic failure. And I don't know. I think that's a cost of doing business, unfortunately, in our space. My father was a lifetime insurance agent, and constantly like, do you have your stuff insured? I'm like, I have it insured. It's just, I don't know what I'm going to actually get when I have to make a claim because
Right.
our stuff devalues so quickly.
Yep.
Like, and he's like, "Will you get replacement costs?" I'm like, "But will I?" I, I, I just don't trust insurance anymore. I mean, I was in it for a while and I hated every minute of it, but yeah, I don't know. I think part of that is why I also don't like buying really high, expensive stuff myself. I would rather, if I need it, rent it or find another camera nerd who I can hire who has it.
Right.
We have a guy that's the fun part about the community. There's not a lot of people in our area. And so I know a lot of the guys, and I've got this guy. I'm like, oh man, I need a red. I'll just call him. He brings his red and we have a red camera now on set and, no rental required. So, I don't know. That's a difficult pill to swallow, is decide how much am I willing to lose.
Yeah.
And GoPro's putting all of their fans in a really precarious position as that's is related to that. Because I think their customer base is not like you and me. Like you said, it's like the kid who wants to go ripping down a mountain, and who's going to do something and be like, oh, well, I want to get this warranted. And they're like, oh yeah, sorry, we're out of business. I'm like,
Right. Yeah, they sell you a protection plan, and then 2 years later, they've sold the company down the line, and
yeah,
who's going to service that warranty plan that you paid for?
yeah,
I had an issue with GoPro, and it makes me think about like what's the future, where one of their waterproof cameras, the battery door leaked,
mm,
fried the whole main board on it. And it was perfectly, like, it was not my fault at all. I took it in a foot and a half of water. Battery door failed. And thankfully, props to GoPro at the time. This was probably the Hero 7. They took it back. They fixed it. They gave me a new one, or a refurbished one, whatever. They fixed it and gave me a fixed one back.
yeah.
So I appreciate that. But what's going to happen going forward if they move forward with this restructuring plan? How likely is it that this $799, $700, maybe you got the Mission 1 Pro, your $700 camera, you're going to be able to get batteries for it. You're going to be able
Yeah.
to send it in somewhere if you have a waterproofing issue.
Well, and that's a tricky one that you bring up there too, because I get nervous about that even on all of my cameras, because to charge, get the memory card, whatever, you're constantly opening and closing those doors, and it's like an open and slide situation.
Right.
My other hobby per se, I love watches, watch collecting. It's kind of cool, and I find it interesting because watches, you're supposed to get serviced, if especially ones that are water resistant to 200 meters or whatever, theoretically every 2 years, and have that gasket checked. And I never move that gasket. I don't touch that gasket. It sits sealed for 2 years, and you still have to go get it checked. And I wonder how many of us are just beating the garbage out of those rubber seals every time we open, close, and open, close, open, close. You're definitely going to have more failures, like you're saying. It's a real
Right.
potential.
Yeah, and it's one thing to be a potential if you have service that's
Yeah.
available,
Yeah.
or you have a company that's kind of reusing similar parts and giving you a new thing because let's be honest, like, we've moved away from the watch model where you could buy a watch and 100 years later you're passing it down to your great grandkids and it
Correct.
still works fine.
Yeah.
Now it's, maybe this GoPro is going to last for 2 years until the next, the Mission 2 comes out. And then
Right.
you're going to buy that one as well, and they kind of make it disposable in that way. But if you don't have a guarantee, you'll never buy the camera today for what you want today.
Yep.
You will never get a guarantee. But there's some of that expectation that you're buying into a system, like you talked about DJI. You buy into
Yeah.
a system, you invest in that ecosystem of products because you have some faith that that ecosystem is going to be around for a while.
Yeah.
This board movement with GoPro and its continuous loss of money makes me think like, God, I want an American product to
Yeah.
stay around here,
Yeah.
but is it, there are lots of American companies that fail as well, especially ones that struggle with innovating and taking on excessive amounts of debt, you
Yeah.
know? And so I did think about, I think we talked about it, and I also saw on Tony Northrup's video some comments about, competition is good. Fully
Yeah.
agree with that. We want an American camera company in this space
Yep.
to compete, because if not, if you lose GoPro, you have basically Chinese companies making up the difference, and Extra, which is definitely not DJI. It's
Definitely
definitely an
not.
American company.
Definitely an
Just
American
happens to have
company.
IP. But for the most part, you're dealing
Yeah.
with Chinese camera companies, right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking about that, and we're kind of reflecting on that, knowing I was going to get to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
And I've got a story and a thought on
Okay.
this camera dilemma if GoPro goes away. So I was out shooting a news piece. This was probably 6 months ago, and it was very fast. It was one of those news pieces. You've done it too.
Yeah.
You don't get retakes on certain events. You're there. You have 20 minutes to get whatever shots you want. And so I've spent the week before prepping. I've got my FX3 there. I've got a couple of GoPros there. And I give a GoPro to my talent who's going to go out and kind of do this interview and get some shots of like, he's the only one that's going to get this tour, right?
Hmm.
And so I go, okay, here's the GoPro. We're going to have, 4K files. It's going to be great. Let's shoot everything on the GoPro. And he, picks up his iPhone 17. He goes, why don't I just shoot on this?
Yeah.
It's faster. I know it's going to work. I know how the camera works. And then I can just turn around and post it and upload it like as soon as I finish the tour.
Right.
And so I was thinking about this, like in terms of the action camera space, it's interesting. Another American company is taking a lot of that, has been taking a lot of that market share away.
Good point.
Is like Apple is that GoPro competitor outside of like, I want to go diving with it, which is true. But like how many people on a daily basis are reaching for their iPhone? And that was like a light bulb moment for me is this, the talent, this guy that I was working with felt more confident and comfortable shooting the same 4K, and the iPhone goes up to 4K 120. The new ones shoot ProRes and ProRes RAW if you want to put an SSD card on it. So like for the day-to-day, as long as you're not like really beating them up, that's an American company that's really starting to like eat into GoPro's market share.
Well, and you can buy Apple Care, and it's great, and you're going to get it fixed because Apple has a serious motivation to fix that product for you. They need you to stay in that system. GoPro doesn't have that same need. They're just delivering one thing. We make camera, you shoot things, but Apple wants you to have that phone because they want to track your whole life. Let's be honest. They're tracking the data they're collecting. And it was someone who brought that up. It was somebody brought it up in the watch space. I know I may be more ADD than you are, but
I love it.
He said what he expects, because once they put in the thing where it had automatic crash detection, he said, oh, what's going to happen? And now that it tracks your heart rate and they want a couple other metrics in there,
right?
He said within 3 years, you could see where your insurance company is going to come to you like they do with your car and say, hey, if you own an Apple Watch, we'll give you a discount on your health insurance. And in 5 years, it will be, if you don't have an Apple Watch, you're uninsurable. So that Apple wants to be to collect that data. They are getting such a huge, and it's not like it's a Chinese interest, but there's a huge amount of money to be made in the data that they're collecting to that. So my point is, when I break my iPhone, boy, they want me to have that fixed right now. They will give you a loaner. They'll do whatever they have to get that back in your hands. So that's a peace of mind for a lot of people when they have that camera. And there's such a ecosystem built around the iPhone. You can get underwater housings. You can get all of those things that would make it very close to a GoPro competitor. You make a very good point about that, because most of the normal world is doing the exact opposite that I'm doing. I wanted to get away from using my phone for everything because there's just so much data on my phone. I can't stand it, as a content creator. So having it on a camera where it's like sits over here and it's not clogging up my phone is wonderful for me. But most people don't care. They're not shooting everyday stuff like we are. We're always making, either for customers or for our YouTube content, I'm going through terabytes of data, and it's like, I can't keep that on my phone. It's irritating. Yeah.
Right.
But that's a very good point, because the same thing is true with what you said earlier. The one kid who buys it to go skiing or whatever, it's just once a year or whatever he uses it. So he can use his phone.
Yeah.
It's no problem.
And A film professor told me at one point some great advice or a great point is that the best camera for you is the one you have on you.
Right.
And I think that is the mentality that iPhone has stuck with, and what has taken a lot of these, prosumer point and shoots. Look at the point and shoot market. It's
Yeah.
gone. It's decimated. And there is a movement back to these cameras, the Fuji films that are so low computational, because the point and shoots used to be, you had dynamic range optimizers and you had skin filters that you could get on these little Canon power shots. Well, the iPhone does all that. So if you're just going to reach for a photo and you want to take a picture really quick, or you're on vacation, you want to take a video of you at the beach, do you want to pack up the GoPro and 2 or 3 extra batteries? Like, that's what I found just anecdotally myself, and why I haven't bought another one is because I found myself just using the iPhone for what I was using the GoPro for. And then I was so impressed by the 360 cameras. That's where I spent my okay, if I'm going to do an action thing, then I'm not thinking about the framing. And how many GoPro shots have you had where you mount it on a helmet and it's tipped down just a little bit too much, and you get it back and you're like, oh crap, it's just my chin for the whole ride or whatever you were doing, And so the 360 cameras solved that problem.
They're awesome. And I'll tell you, the other, to that end of kind of retro, Peter McKinnon totally suckered me in. I went out, not the same one, but I just bought one of those Fuji Instax printers. Dude, that is so fun. It's so fun to print out a physical picture and give it to somebody. It's a totally different experience than the phone.
Right.
And I love that tactile thing. And do it even as an Easter egg. We were watching my son's cat over the weekend. I took a couple pictures, and they have pictures all over the fridge, and I just magneted a couple pictures of the cat on the fridge so they would find them later. And they called us later that is awesome. It's just fun. Yeah.
That return to something tactile is, that's something, boy, I'd give GoPro their flowers for that one, but Insta360 built their little printer and stuff. There are companies that are unfortunately innovating in the space. GoPro is struggling to find where it should innovate. And especially on these last few, I just call them missteps, and you're putting what's shrinking R&D money into spaces where, we've moved past that in a filmmaking community, in my opinion, in large numbers. Now I keep seeing online comments, oh, I bought mine, I love the Mission one, I love it. So they're either selling cameras or they're paying people to make comments online, which could be a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But I want it to sell. There's just a lot. I would say same thing as what Tony Northrup said is know that you are buying a system that may not be here next year. Yeah. It may look very different next year. And so as long as you're okay with that, that would be my only warning is and I have said on my channel with you, GoPro's color science is still the best. Out of the three, you want to pick DJI, Insta360, and GoPro, put them next to each other. I think straight out of camera, I don't want to color correct it. I want to download the footage from my action camera and I want to post it. GoPro looks great.
Yeah, okay.
I think DJI is catching up, but GoPro has done a great job of developing color science and how they get that image from their sensor into, a visualization that you can see. They do a great job at it. And so they have done a really good job, and they've built, I've continued to invest in them because they're the easiest clip to get right from the camera into your phone and out. If you can color correct, or if you can tweak it a little bit in post, I don't know, you did some stuff with the DJI that was just beautiful.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, that's the thing. I love the DJI shooting at that 10-bit, So then it, especially, at a beach where it easily could blow out all the highlights, it's extremely capable at that. And then I did I did all the things that we nerds do. It had ND filter on, I got ND32, but shot in log, color grade. And then it's man, this is every bit as good as any camera I'm currently shooting with. And I've got a buddy who shoots, I can't remember what he has. I think he has FX6 and a couple others, but he's been lately playing around with his DJI, and he posted on his Instagram, and you're like, you wouldn't know that came from an action camera. And I think that's, I guess, what has become so compelling to me is that I have a camera now that I have a client that like runs a machine shop. You know, we can put that, we put it inside a CNC machine. You know, it's getting blasted with oil and just some metal spraying around. And it's like, you wouldn't put a camera in there. But with these,
Right.
you're like, yeah, let's try it. We just rinse it off and we're done. It's insane. And you get beautiful footage. Like I keep looking for reasons to shoot more with it. That's why I'm so interested in the Pocket 4 or the Extra 2 P, because to have two focal lengths now,
Yes.
now we're talking a very interesting package that even if it's $800, it's only $800 shooting. And they said the latest version is True Log. It's not even like this D-Log M or whatever. It's like True Log. And I don't trust the 17 stops of dynamic range that's being claimed. We'll see about that.
Right.
But
17's pushing it.
that's pretty impressive if it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to see how that's happening. But even with the 13 or 14 that it currently has now, it's like, this is pretty good footage because when everything I'm using professionally, like you, it's a controlled environment. I'm setting up the lighting. I'm controlling what's happening and filtering, and I'm getting a very good product. That again, I think we have to, because you guys checked me on it when you guys were like, oh, it's about ego, and it was talking about the vertical video versus horizontal. I
Yeah.
begin to want to check other filmmakers of, do you really need the red? Or have you convinced yourself that it looks better? Because I'm telling you, this footage for everything, my application. Now, if I'm putting it on an 80-foot, movie screen, okay, I guess suppose so. But if we're shooting it to go on the website and it's going to be served up at 720p, what are we doing?
Right.
The same guy, and he's a great guy. I love working with him. But I was telling him about this Chinese anamorphic lenses. He's like, oh, I don't know. No. We need to rent these from this rental house. And I'm like, but it looks great. It's got all the things. Oh,
Yeah.
you got to use these. And I'm like, okay, and they look great, but I'm not convinced it's not better than what I currently could do with my own. Just saying.
Yeah.
So
the barrier to entry is getting smaller on every piece.
And I don't mind that because this is something this is an adage I live by. I don't care if everybody can get access to a great camera now for cheap. I have said this before because I'm a visual artist also. And I was like, hey, you know what? For centuries, everybody has been able to go to the craft store and buy paint and brushes and canvases. There's still only a few artists that you know by name. And so the same will be true, no matter how good the camera tech gets, no matter how good cell phones get, you have to put the camera in the hands of an artist, and then you will get a good product at the end, which is what you and I do. Humbly, I will say.
And this wasn't on our agenda to talk about, but man, is it popular in our space right now. You have to put the work in to get really good at it. And a lot of people, and to GoPro and to camera marketing in general, is so selling the idea that if you just buy this new 10-bit, if you just buy 17 stops of dynamic range, if you just buy 960 frames a second, you're going to get that cinematic look and you won't have to do any work, and you're going to be up there with the artists and the creators of every, of the greats. And look at a movie like Obsession and Curry Barker, who put out thousands of YouTube videos, practiced his craft, dropped out of film school, and learned on YouTube by literally posting thousands of videos, learning how to tell a short scene, learning how to get attention, learning how to market, because if you're not going to get clicks on YouTube, you're not going to, it's not going to do well, right? So, and he practiced and honed that craft, and then got $750,000 of a budget and made, it's almost at 200 million. Like, that is honing your craft. So that idea that like you just buy the camera and then you're good, like no, go start making things. And we played this like short video on our show last week, which is Curry Barker said it. Allow yourself to go make a film. Go make 10. Go make 10 bad films. Put them out on YouTube and learn. And I feel like that is, you know, to your point, if you, as an artist in general, if you're looking for, you know, to go back to what you said, if you were sold $50 paint and that $50 paint is going to make a Rembrandt instead of the $10 paint or the $5 paint, like that's not how it works. You have to put in 10,000 hours of painting before you're going to even find a voice that you can even call yourself an artist. You have to find that voice, and it doesn't just come from $50 Rembrandt paint. It's not going to happen.
No, and that's a fun and a hard part for people to recognize. I did one year. I did a really fun project where I called it my Sketch Project 12, and I was going to do a doodle every day for 12 months, and I invited other people to participate in it too. And I made books out of it and stuff. But what was neat about it was it forced those reps of like just being creative and making things every single day, just to kind of share an idea. But even if half of them were crappy, it didn't matter, because it was like I was learning more about space and composition and stuff every single time. And it's the same is true with film. And there's so many YouTubers, which I appreciate, who will say, are offering advice to people saying, hey, look, just make videos, just make them, because your first one's not going to go viral. I mean, you can, if it was, you caught something wild, you know, some silly thing, but it's going to be bad, and it will be bad for a couple months, maybe a couple years. You just got to start making it and learning what's working and what's not working. And I don't know, that's a whole other conversation, but the camera will not make you be a better filmmaker, you know, and
it's just a medium to get you to tell your story.
And the term cinematic is bantered about way too often. Cinematic means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And it doesn't mean blurry background.
Right.
It just doesn't.
Yep.
You know, but we fell for it when Canon, we'll go back to it, that Rebel T2i made that blurry background. We're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
But
I'd say the 7D, when the 7D and the 5D came out and people started adopting those as their short film, you know, cameras to go to. Yeah. It was that 7D, 5D combo, especially in like doc world, was huge. And everybody thought, I need, you know, a T1, and I need a full frame, and I need to not be able to see anything behind me. And that's cinematic. And then we've kind of changed the goalposts of what cinematic means over the years, but we've kept with the marketing, which is the impressive part.
I will tell you the other thing. I guess one last note, if you're thinking about being a filmmaker, in my opinion, one of the best things you can do, and you learn so much, is join some 48-hour film challenges. Oh, man. It is a blast.
Great.
You learn how to work under pressure, and you learn how to problem solve. So I highly recommend it, especially if you got a fun group of people to work with. Have you done a few of those?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Some of my best learning experiences were some 48-hour film festivals where you had to, you know, write it, shoot it, direct it, edit it, put it out, and like get it out into the world in 48 hours. And but it's like, to your point, to like what we've been talking about, like that's YouTube in a big way, is like you can do that. You can prompt yourself to do that once a week if you really want to be good at this, and then, you know, do it once a week. Do a 48-hour film competition once a week. Doesn't mean you have to spend a lot of money. Doesn't mean you have to spend any money. You're just honing your craft over and over and over again until you find what your voice is, and you get some feedback on what works and what doesn't work and how to tell that story. And, you know, that's what a lot of these YouTubers are showing Hollywood right now, is that if you can cut your teeth in a way that if you don't hook them in the first 3 seconds, you're out. It's, you know, it's really paying off at the box office. And I think it's honestly scared and shocked Hollywood in a lot of ways that, you know, these kids coming up are doing it better than some of these directors that are getting paid millions of dollars to try and make something work. It's an interesting space for sure.
They get in their own heads of like, well, this is what needs to be done. And it's like, does it?
Yeah, exactly. So circling back, because the end of the GoPro story that I thought, you know, in Tony's video, thought was interesting. He kind of shared his thoughts on if it were to be sold,
Yeah.
who would be the buyer of it? And I want your thoughts.
Yeah.
I have some controversial. I don't know. I have some thoughts on myself, but I'm interested in if you think GoPro is actually going to pursue this. And the board, to be clear, from at least my understanding, the board has said we don't have a timeline on this. We are not pushing forward fast on any of this. They're just open and looking. So who do you think would be a buyer of this?
I honestly, I'm not sure. I thought, despite the ones he put up as speculation, I think it will be more interesting to see a company sort of like, I'm not sure who it would be, Nike, someone who's in the space of sports to then have this as a offshoot or something that then goes hand in hand with what it is they do as a business model. Someone who lives in that space I thought would be interesting because that might at least save it because they would
Yeah.
have a compelling reason to make it work. But I don't know that, we live in that world. But in my mind, somebody who caters to a sports audience might be a great owner. What about you?
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that. I would say, man, to like piggyback off of what you're thinking, if
Yeah.
that was the route, which would be a really,
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. That would be a really interesting route. I'd say some company like closer to Red Bull or Monster that's
Yeah.
really ingrained in like the action kind of sports world and does a lot more lifestyle,
Yeah.
than because like Red Bull, I love using Red Bull as a social media example because you go to Red Bull's Instagram page, you don't see a single can of energy drink. Like you
Yeah.
don't. You see lifestyle, you see action sports. Half of that stuff was probably shot on GoPros. So
Yeah.
some company like that could be such an interesting partnership. I love it. I hadn't even thought
Re-
about that. That's a great idea.
Red Bull is an interesting one, especially with their entree into F1 racing.
Right.
I'm not sure what camera systems they use for all their onboard, but there's a natural fit there even. That's interesting. Yeah, Red Bull, for obvious reasons, Red Bull, which I just wasn't thinking. But yeah, I don't know, because the way Tony was thinking, you could see fashion brands buying up the weirdest things right now. And so it just depends on how they want to spread their market. But yeah, Red Bull's probably a better fit than what I'm thinking.
I think Tony threw it around, and I've seen it. Other people mention it that Apple would potentially buy it. I'm glad you didn't
Yeah.
say it because to me, my argument against Apple buying GoPro is for what reason? Why would Apple intentionally inherit $100 million of debt
Yeah.
for a camera system that they're already competitive with? They already have 240 frames a second. They already have a sensor technology and computational photography in their iPhone.
Yeah.
I don't see that as anything but Apple buying GoPro to shut them up. But GoPro's doing that on their own. Like Apple does not need to help GoPro go out of business. I don't see that as being a win.
Apple only needs to make like they do in the watch space. They could just make an iPhone Ultra that's a ruggedized iPhone, and they'd have it. They'd already have it.
Yeah, I mean, they've done it.
Right.
The 17 is already waterproof. You can take it underwater. You can beat that thing up. And like you said, you've got Apple Care. If anything goes wrong with it, you can send it in for a couple, for $100. They'll replace the screen or the lenses or whatever. So, yeah, I saw that circulating around, and I don't see what's in it for Apple.
His suggestion of Garmin was interesting as well, because interweaving their GPS technology into that, interesting. I don't know. That's a weird one. I think Garmin would. It's not.
I don't think Garmin has the cash. That's they're struggling too because Apple's eating the watch world. It's hard enough for them to find a space in their own space. I don't think they have the cash to go about it. Now, I'll tell you the one that is my dream, my hope, and I don't think it would ever happen. I wish Blackmagic would buy GoPro.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
They have the sensor technology. They know how to make a camera. They have the pipeline. They have the user interface to make something like that cool. And a Mission 1, a GoPro style action camera would sit right under their micro cinema camera. They already have like a little box camera anyway. I don't think they need to. Like you said with Apple, like you could just make it. But
Yeah.
if you want to inherit it with a company that is already a good steward of money and business and how they market their products, how they price their products, and what their company ethos is around the filmmaking space, I think that could save GoPro and bring it back to that, you know, 2004 GoPro with the waterproof housing.
That's an interesting one. I will say, though, to that end, that guy who runs Blackmagic seems way too intelligent to take on something with that bad of a loss. He is so forward thinking. You have got me paying attention with the whole DaVinci Resolve thing, which can be another conversation. I haven't got there yet.
Yeah.
I keep just loving I keep loving to hate how much I spend on Adobe, but it just like I move in it so efficiently now. I'm just like, oh yeah, and I just need to pop, 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 and just taking the 5 or 6 months to learn that. I'm like, I don't know, I have the time for that.
It's a learning curve for sure. And
Yeah,
I get it. But you are dead on. Grant Petty is the CEO and owner of Blackmagic. And
yeah,
you will not find a smarter guy. And we talked about this on our show a little bit. And that's why I would say, like, because I do genuinely want GoPro to survive in the space, and I
yeah.
don't want, DJI to buy it, where now we only have Chinese companies to buy action cameras from. Um, I do like, there are very few companies that I would look at as being like ethical companies. Um, and I, would stop just short of saying Blackmagic is, but they seem like a very every time I hear their employees sit down and talk about the company, about how they develop products, about how they price products, you know, they really seem to come from a creator space, from a filmmaker space, from people that are actually in the industry, in a really positive way. And so if not Blackmagic buying GoPro, I hope we just see more of that mentality and less
Hmm.
of maybe the Adobe mentality, which is we're just going to train our AI until it's so good that it can replace all of our editors. They did that. They did that campaign for Photoshop where it's like, hey, look at our Firefly generative fill model. You can fire your photographer. We just use generative fill. I thought that is such not a great way to market to creatives that have
Yeah,
been paying your salaries for decades.
yeah.
Fire the photographer is not a great tagline for your marketing business.
I've never had a good experience yet using generative fill personally. It never seems to quite hit right for me.
Yeah.
And I've watched a lot lately because my father's been challenging me. He doesn't see this AI bubble crash potential as a real problem. And I'm like, it is a serious, real problem. And I've been watching a lot of videos of late that have talked about how AI has failed in numerous times now to deliver on the promises that were made. And people are going back to bringing people back on board. They're backing away some of these statements because it just, like, they can make that statement that look at our Firefly, but I think that's under an ideal situation and they've pumped the exact right prompt. But for everyday users, it's not happening. People are burning through their credits like crazy using AI.
Yeah.
AI is a good tool. It is not I mean, I keep saying not a replacement for creators. It hasn't proven to be true yet, but
Yep.
maybe
I
I'm wrong.
completely agree with you. I got two clips
Yeah.
for you. You can either cut them in or link them, and everybody who's watching can go watch them. First
Yeah.
one I love is Seth Rogen at Cannes Film Festival talking about AI, and he's just
Okay.
like, "Why would I ever want a tool that makes me write less to write for me? Like, I actually
Yeah.
enjoy the process. And by the way, if you don't enjoy the process of writing, you probably shouldn't be a writer then. Like,
Right.
why would I ever want a process to take away the thing that I actually enjoy doing? And like, to call back to the middle of our show is like,
Yeah.
if you don't want to put in 10,000 hours, you're probably not going to be good at, like, you're just sending it off to some other kind of amalgamation of ones and zeros to do something for you. You're not a writer. If you
Yeah.
want to use generative fill to do your to do your editing for you, to do your photography for you, you're not a photographer.
Yeah.
And the second clip that I just love, Kane Parsons, who just, he was the other YouTuber that just did Backrooms, which has done insanely well at the box office. Its opening weekend, I think it did like a 10x return on what he spent for it. His 20-year-old guy who cut his teeth in YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And he said, I have no interest in generative hill. He's been
Yeah.
wildly outspoken about using AI and his dislike for it. And he said it in a really intelligent way, which was just when he knows that generative fill has been used on a scene or on a background, it just shuts off that part of your brain that wants to know more about that scene, to look for details about how somebody sculpted the background and the environment that you're actively like in. It shuts off
Yeah.
that part of your brain. You just tune out. And then, the last part of that clip is he says, if you used that as an arbitrary decision on one piece of your film, then it just makes me think you've made that arbitrary decision on everything, and I'm just uninterested anymore. And I think that as things progress, we're going to see a lot more of that mindset, which is just, the art of telling a story is taking you through an environment that you've crafted and created, not that you've allowed a generation to like sum up for you.
I, we keep extending this, and I don't mean to. I'm sorry. So when you got to go, just say. But I watched another guy talking about it, which gave me a glimmer of hope with AI. And he was talking about the fact that AI has been feeding off of every bit of written and art and everything, and learning super fast, and it's learned everything. However, that arc is to a point now where like there's nothing left for it to learn in about a year or two, and it won't be able to advance beyond that point because there's nothing we haven't figured out. We haven't learned it ourselves yet for it to then take it from us. So that ROI is falling off. It's getting to a point where it's at critical mass. Like, well, now it knows everything, but it can't make anything new out of that. It just knows everything. So I don't know. Again, there are great tools AI is for. One of my favorite is using the transcript tool in Adobe.
Mm-hmm.
Like that helps me in my editing. But it doesn't do anything. It just gives me the words.
Right.
And I know that took out somebody's job, because that was a thing we used to always farm out. Hey, get this for closed captions. You got to send this off to a service, and they would do it. That's bad. Sorry. But that's one that's a pretty low hanging fruit. I don't know.
I'm not opposed to, I think we almost need to table this and have like a whole nother discussion, because it's a great discussion. But to agree with you and kind of button it, I'm not opposed to AI taking somebody's job. Like, I know that's brutal, but like that has happened 100 million times over the course of any innovative process. Cars took horses' jobs, buggies' jobs, right? The printing press took writers' jobs away, and the copywriters away.
Yeah.
And so the camera took painters' jobs away.
Right.
There's always something that will take somebody's job away, but there will always be an innovation and a press forward. And, where the camera took a lot of painters' jobs away, it created a whole new industry of people that were creating art with photography.
Correct.
And it also kind of left space for some of these nuanced painters to have space in the market. Was everybody going to be a painter at that point once the camera was around? No, but it still left it left space in there for the really, truly great, like you said, the ones that spent 10,000 hours crafting something. It left that. And so I always feel like the next thing will always take somebody's job. It's our job to adapt and be better than just whatever the next thing is. If you're going to be great at something, you don't want to be average or middle of the road anyway. Yeah. But I think that what AI is selling currently, and mostly the generative parts of AI, right?
Yeah.
It's selling the abdication of your creative process to a computer model that is knowingly just averaging out ones and zeros of everybody else's stuff that has been trained probably without consent most of the time. In terms of consent, we all sign terms and services that we shouldn't sign, right? You scroll through and you click agree at the bottom of a page. So is it legally consensual for them to take every post on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook to go train models? I guess. Is it morally right? Not really. Nah. And as you combine all of that stuff together, is it giving you absolute, is it giving you the Mona Lisa? No. It's giving you your 5-year-old's kid painting that's now hanging up on your refrigerator, right? It's giving you a total combination of all those things spit back out into what its algorithm thinks is right. So I just don't like that part. I don't like the people that think that there's a shortcut and an easy way. I do subscribe to the 10,000 hour mindset. And so if you really think you're going to get great by, typing in a prompt and saying, okay, go do it for me, then, hearkening back to Seth Rogen's comment, you aren't that thing. You aren't a writer. You aren't a filmmaker. If you want the shortcut, you don't want to go through the process. You don't want to go through, the 10,000 shorts on YouTube to learn what it's like. If you don't want that, you want the shortcut and the easy way out. That's what I don't love. The product that AI is currently selling to people is like, and that's how you get all the slop and the AI garbage that's, floating around YouTube and Instagram and all these places.
100%. Well, this has been an awesome conversation, Colden. I really appreciate you spending the
afternoon
every
with
time.
Me.
I know we got to do it more often, but I really enjoy it. And please, you guys, don't throw any hate at Colden. If you're upset with what we said about GoPro, just let me know. I'll take it on.
Go throw all the hate you want. If you disagree with me, I disagree with me most of the time too. So I'm fine with it. I will say, like, every time somebody disagrees with me in the comment section, man, I either learn something or I laugh a little bit. So like, bring it. Like, I love it. I love it. Bring the discourse. I don't care. You can hate on me all you want.
Well, thanks again, Colden, and thank you all for watching. And we'll see you in the next one.